What's up, guys? In today's video, I want to talk about one of the most important elements in all of disc golf, and that is our mental game. In today's video, I'm going to give you what I believe to be 5 essential tips for improving your mental game. And before I do that, I just want to go ahead and say that this is completely my opinion. These have been things that have helped me improve my mental game, and overall, that has helped me be a better disc golfer as a whole. And so hopefully some of these things that I tell you today will help you improve yours as well. But all that to say, this is just my opinion. If you haven't already, I want to invite you to go ahead and subscribe down below so that you can be on the lookout for any future content. As you've may know, if you've watched my last video, I am getting ready to have surgery here in the next few weeks. And so I'm going to be posting a lot of stuff about my recovery and ways I'm trying to get back out on the course. And so I hope you'll stay tuned for that. So if you haven't already, make sure to go hit the subscribe button. Now, without further ado, let's get into my 5 tips to improve your mental game. Tip number 1 is to simplify your game. Now, you may be thinking, what does it mean to actually simplify your game? Well, let's be honest with ourselves first. Disc golf is already a hard enough sport without us having to make it even more complicated. And so the more factors we can eliminate when it comes to playing disc golf, the better off we're going to be. Let me give you an example. So you're stepping up on the tee, you're thinking about all the different things that you have to do to execute the shot perfectly. You're thinking about the wind, what kind of angle you need to release it on, what the disc is going to do when it actually comes out of your hand, how much power do you need to put on it, and all these other things that are going into your decision of how to throw this shot. Well, if we actually eliminate some of those factors, that's going to take a lot of the mental stress off of us. So much of what we do in disc golf is we're thinking we've got to throw this absolutely perfect shot. And let's be honest with ourselves, it's really hard to throw a perfect shot every time we step up on the tee. Is the goal to throw a perfect shot every time we step up on the tee? Absolutely. But there's also the realistic nature of the game that says that ain't going to happen every single time we step up on the tee. And so if we go in with the expectation that every tee shot we throw is going to be absolutely perfect, then we've already lost the mental battle right there. But that doesn't mean we can't continue to do our best to execute each shot as much as possible. And one of the best ways I think we can do that is by, again, simplifying our game and eliminating factors so that we're not having to have all that mental stress on us every time we step up to a putt or to a tee box trying to execute a perfect tee shot. So let me give you an example. Let's say we've got a hole that's about 300 feet away and it finishes off to the right, and there's really no factors in the way. There's no trees, there's nothing that's prohibiting you from getting to the basket. Now for me, I'm a player who throws a sidearm and a backhand. I would say I mostly throw backhand shots. However, I'm very comfortable with sidearm. Well, since this basket finishes off to the right, for me personally, I'm going to go away from the backhand turnover. The main reason for this is there are so many factors involved. How much angle do I put on the disc? How much power do I need to put on the disc in order to make it turn over? How much height do I need to give it? What's the wind doing? All of those questions are going through my mind, and all of those are applicable to how I throw that backhand shot. As opposed to if I'm stepping up on that same tee, throwing that exact same shot with a sidearm, there are a lot less factors at play. I can take an overstable driver. I know right away it's going to get the distance that I need, so I don't have to think about that. I know no matter how I release this disc that it's still going to finish off to the right, so I don't have to think about that. So really the main thing that's going through my mind is what angle am I releasing the disc on and what line am I giving it? Right there, I'm automatically eliminating some of the factors by throwing a sidearm as opposed to a backhand turnover shot. And so that gives me a lot more confidence stepping up on the tee to where I'm not having to think about so many different elements to this particular shot in order to put myself in a position in order to score. Does that make sense? There is absolutely no need to make this game any harder on yourself than it already is. We all have some of these same struggles, so why not make it a lot easier on ourselves by taking what the course is giving us, doing what these discs are designed to do, and ultimately making our play a lot better. And that transitions us straight into tip number 2, which is stick to what is comfortable for you. This might be a tip that if you've watched some of my other videos, you've probably heard me say time and time again. And there's so many aspects of my game that I would say derive from this very tip. When I was first getting into disc golf, I did what a lot of people did. I watched a lot of videos. I did everything to improve my form. And those things are helpful. Don't hear me say that you shouldn't try to improve your form as much as possible. Because ultimately, yes, there are people that are way better at this game that can tell you more helpful things in order to help improve your form than I can. And so I recognize that, and I definitely encourage you to take that advice. However, I don't think that that means that you have to scratch everything that makes you comfortable when it comes to playing disc golf. There are things that you can do that you're already doing. You can make minor adjustments over time to make you improve your form, improve your overall game, that don't involve you having to take every aspect of your game and getting rid of it in order to achieve somebody else's form or somebody else's style of play. All of us are different in how we approach the game. All of us throw differently. All of us putt differently. Yes, there are general tips that make us all better disc golfers, no doubt about that. However, we also have to identify what is it about our game that is strong and how can we make it stronger by doing what's within our comforts. So if you've watched some of my other videos, you've probably heard me talk about my putting style. You'll notice for me, I putt with a lot of hyzer. It's no secret, it's no denying it. I know I do it, and it's not always the most efficient putt. I completely understand that. However, for me, that is a very comfortable way of putting. I've tried making sure that I putt flat. I've tried doing a lot of the different things that I've seen other successful putters do. But for whatever reason, that just has never worked for me. Whenever I try to putt as flat as possible, I always yank the disc over and I miss way right. And I've never been able to get it to work for me. However, when I putt with hyzer, what that allows me to do is have more control over the disc. And honestly, if I'm missing the basket, I'm missing more up and down, which for me personally is a lot easier to adjust than if I'm missing left or right. I know that I'm giving it way more of a chance to go in the basket if I'm allowing the disc to drop in as opposed to never giving it a chance by yanking it way off to the right. Also, by putting with hyzer, that just has always been a way that I've gained more accuracy when it comes to putting. I'm not really having to adjust a lot of the speed. What I'm really doing is adjusting the height. And so for me, that is what works for me. And so I've always had a lot more success, although it's a little bit unconventional. I've had a lot more success putting with hyzer than I do putting flat. Another example that I would offer is my particular run-up when it comes to teeing off. A lot of people will teach you the importance of an X step, and allow me to say an X step is definitely the way to go if you can do it. I've seen some of the best throwers of a disc that I've ever seen use a perfect X step. And what the X step is meant to do is, one, turn your hips away so that you can generate more power ultimately in your throw. But part of the X step, and really all elements of your walk up or your run up on the tee, is to help your timing so that you can ultimately execute a perfect shot. And so an X step is definitely an essential part of most people's run up. However, for me, as many times as I've tried doing an X step, it just has never worked for me. I've never been able to get the timing right. I've put in the practice hours and it's just never been able to click for me. And I've never been able to incorporate that as a part of my rhythm and walk up when it comes to the tee. Now, for me personally, I come from an ultimate Frisbee background. I played ultimate through college, and so I've always had this kind of crow hop in my throw. I don't know what that is. It's just always something that I've done. But really what that crow hop allows me to do is essentially the same type of thing that an X step does for me. Now, not everybody's going to have that exact same result, but the way my crow hop is I might not get my feet intertwined with each other, but I'm still able to get my hips turned. And what that crow hop does is it allows me to have that kind of timing. It's something from my ultimate background that I had good timing with. And so that just naturally transitioned into disc golf as well. And so every time you see me throw, if you watch some of my videos, if you see me play, then you know that's a big important part, whether I'm throwing a 200-foot shot or if I'm trying to reach 500 feet. That crow hop is a part of my rhythm because it's something that allows me to have good timing off the tee. So again, it's unconventional, I get that, But if I'm still throwing 450, 500, and I'm able to have that instead of an X step, that's what's comfortable for me. So instead of having to deconstruct all of my form, every aspect of my game that's helped me be successful, I'm just going to stick to what's comfortable and try to incorporate other things into my form so that I can get those same results. Hope that makes sense. The third tip to improve your mental game that I would recommend is to embrace bad practice rounds. Now, I know what you're thinking is, why in the world would you embrace a bad practice round? So maybe the wording could be changed a little bit, but essentially what I mean by this is don't run away from when things aren't going well. A lot of times that's when we're going to learn the most about who we are as disc golfers, is when things aren't going right. If you're like me, you can throw practice rounds and you can shoot 15 under, but as soon as you step into a tournament setting or a more competitive setting, you're thinking, why am I not shooting that well now? Well, perhaps one of the reasons that it doesn't go so well in these competitive rounds is because we don't actually practice our bad shots as much as we do our good shots. So I know there's plenty of times for me where I've gone out in a practice round and I play a course that I've always played, and most of the time I shoot well, but there's always those few rounds where I just can't get anything going. I'm landing in places I've never landed in before. I'm missing putts, I'm missing tee shots, and everything just seems to be chaos. However, what has helped me develop a stronger mental game, especially when it comes to translating that to a more competitive round, is by actually practicing within those bad practice rounds, not running away from them, not quitting early, not saying, this just isn't my day. We're all going to have those days. Every disc golfer that has ever played has those bad days. We've got to know that that could happen when we sign up for a tournament or when we're playing in a league or whatever that may be. So why not try our best to improve when things aren't going our way? And so what I try to do is, when I'm actually in the middle of these bad rounds, is I tell myself, this is an opportunity for me to get better when things aren't going my way. So I'm going to work on scrambling. I'm going to work on throwing shots that I might not normally have to throw. That might be thumbers to get out of trouble or forehand rollers. All those things ultimately are going to make you better. Some of the best disc golfers that I watch have a really good ability to get out of trouble when a tee shot doesn't go right or when they have that unfortunate roll away. And so these are ways that we can improve our mental game, because when we find ourselves in those situations, we're not panicking. We're not freaking out because we're not telling ourselves, I didn't execute that shot perfectly. Instead, we can step up to wherever our lie is and say, I've got an opportunity to save par. I've got an opportunity to maybe even save a birdie on this particular hole. So embrace those bad practice rounds, because ultimately they're going to help you when you play in these more competitive rounds. Tip number 4 kind of plays into tip number 3, but tip number 4 is pay attention to your mistakes. So what I mean by paying attention to your mistakes is you can actually learn a lot about your game on the bad throws as much as you can from the good throws. So let me give you an example of how this has worked for me. So there have been plenty of times where I've stepped up on the tee and I throw a disc that I'm very confident in, but let's say I've got a stronger headwind coming my way. And so I throw that disc confident that it's going to do what I expect it to do, but the headwind does what a headwind does, and it takes it flips it over off the fairway, and I'm in some trouble off to the right if I'm throwing a backhand shot. Well, I'm making a mental note to myself. Instead of getting frustrated, instead of slapping myself with a disc or doing anything else, I'm making a mental note that, hey, that disc does not perform well in a headwind. So what I need to do when the wind is up is I need to change my disc selection to something a little more stable, or I need to release that disc with a little more hyzer when it comes to a headwind. And so instead of getting frustrated and not paying attention to my mistakes, instead what I'm doing is I'm making mental notes so that I'm better prepared for the next time I use that disc. The next time I find myself in that situation, I'm a lot more confident knowing what I need to do because I've actually paid attention to what my mistakes are telling me. And in a lot of ways, guys, especially when it comes to disc golf, our mistakes can tell us more about our game than our successes can. And so it's very important for us to actually pay attention to the mistakes that we're making, so ultimately we don't continue to make those mistakes down the line. And that transitions us into our final tip, tip number 5, which is going to sound obvious, but it is everyone makes mistakes. Now, I'm not trying in any way to downplay the desire for making yourself as good a disc golfer as you can possibly be. But along with striving for greatness in anything we do, we also have to understand that we are imperfect people. We are always going to have elements of our game that are not perfect. We're always going to have rounds where things don't go the way that they should. So it's a balance, right, of being able to set realistic expectations of greatness, but also understanding that there might be some hiccups along the way. Just like we talked about in the last tip, those are the things that make us better disc golfers and ultimately better people, right, as we learn from our mistakes. And so understand that whenever you miss that 15-foot putt, there's somebody else that is also probably missing that 15-foot putt. Now, it might not be in the given tournament that you're playing, but everybody goes through this at some point. It doesn't make you a bad disc golfer. Just because you do something that you don't normally do, like miss a 15-foot putt, that doesn't mean that you're a bad disc golfer. So understand that while you're making mistakes, everyone else is making mistakes as well. What it comes down to is who can make the least amount of mistakes, but ultimately we're all making mistakes out there on the course. And so the more we learn from our mistakes, hopefully that means the less we'll make in the long run. And so having a realistic balance of striving for greatness, setting good, important goals for yourself, but also understanding that there will be mistakes that happen along the way will ultimately serve us better in the long run when it comes to being a better disc golfer. So guys, that's it. Those are my 5 tips to help improve your mental game when it comes to disc golf. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure to comment down below if any of these tips are helpful for you, if these were something that you needed to hear. Or also let me know down in the comments, what is a good mental tip that you would want to share for people that has been helpful for you? We can all benefit from learning from one another. And so I would love to hear from you. What is a good mental tip that has helped you improve your disc golf game and something that you would definitely recommend other people to try? But guys, again, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to like this video and comment down below. As always, I love interacting with you guys and I appreciate all the support that you give to this channel. If you have any questions about any of this or anything you'd like to discuss, be sure to hit me up. I'd love to have conversations with you about it. But guys, until next time, I hope everybody stays safe and we'll catch you in the next one.